There's a lot going on, and Webster was in Ukraine. So let's say, welcome back, Webster. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here, Jeff, and I know all your listeners wish you a speedy and complete recovery from this terrible incident, which
Thank you. Yeah,
I didn't really know anything about.
Well, it was a bad automobile crash, and that led to massive meningitis, which put me in the hospital last Saturday. I was basically non-responsive, and anyway, I'm back. So we'll talk more later.
Very sorry to hear it. But now, since you're in good shape, right, you're in fighting trim, I have to say, the area where I was, of course, is a matter of debate. But I would urge you to join me in considering it the Donetsk People's Republic.
Yes, Donetsk, I do. I refer to it as DPR.
Narodnaya Respublika.
Yeah, DPR and LPR all the time.
There we are. Those are the guys.
Yep.
And those are these two new states which have come into being. So they would deny that it's Ukraine. Now, let me say right off the bat, I think I'm in a position after having been there to say that 2 or 3 of the main staples of the NATO propaganda are simply lies. The first one would be
not a surprise.
No,
yeah.
But it's good to be able to say it.
Please.
With the authority of somebody who's seen it.
Absolutely.
First of all, the ceasefire. Right? We're now living under the Minsk II agreement from February, I guess.
Right.
And the question is, who is violating it? And I can tell you, it's the Kiev fascist forces. Right? They are the ones. And I've been, under their guns, so to speak. There are the northwest neighborhoods of Donetsk, the ones that are close to the airport, are the ones that have been under fire
almost constantly,
quite significantly, right? So the two neighborhoods are Oktyabrskaya, like the October Revolution neighborhood, and then Spartak. So those two neighborhoods, again on the northwest side, are constantly under fire, and they're inhabited by old people who really can't go anywhere, and these old people have to retreat for much of the day into, you can call them bunkers. They're really not full-fledged anti-aircraft shelters, blast shelters, but they do afford some protection, and they're very unsanitary and not pleasant at all. But
miserable.
People actually live down there because they can't. And you meet
Webster, a question, if I may, please. How did you come to get in there? Was it hard to get in there?
Well, I guess it's not that easy. But this was a press agency called Europa Objektiv, which is a Russian-based agency publishing mainly in Germany. They put out a worldwide call, which said, if you're a professional journalist, but not of the mainstream, well-funded, and you'd like to come and see what this is firsthand, we'll bring you. And I think they've brought 4 or 5 delegations, right? If you look on the Internet, you can see that any number of people have written about having been on this tour. There's a guy from the National Interest. So the National Interest, I think his name was Carman, Karman, or something like that. He had obviously been there. And then from the Asia Times, Pepe Escobar, you can find an account by him about it. It's rather strange. He says he went to Donetsk and he found Allen Ginsberg. I couldn't figure that out. I didn't find Allen Ginsberg.
Let's
just let that. We'll just leave it aside. If people are interested in this, they can go look it up, right? But I didn't find Allen Ginsberg there at all.
I got you.
He titled his article "Howling in Donetsk." I think there's something much more important going on in Donetsk, which I'm
agree more.
Eager to tell you about.
Yeah.
All right, so you're there, right? And you hear these, some people say 150 millimeter howitzers going over your head. Here's the trick. This is a coal mining area, right? The Donetsk Donbass could be the greatest coal mining area of the world still. Right. And they're trying. And what it means is that there are these slag heaps all over. As you drive along, constantly on the horizon, you see these slag heaps. They look like the pyramids. They look like South Mountain here in Maryland, and there was really long ones. But they're slag heaps. And so the benefit is that the area of the fighting is the Prokofiev international airport, and that's where the Ukrainian fascists and the rest of them are, and they're shooting at the Donetsk defenders, still on the other side of the flag.
Oh, they're still bivouacked and embarked at the airport, and they're firing from the airport? I didn't know that.
Well, the airport is disputed, right? We couldn't go see the airport. It was just too dangerous. But we did come. We went to this close-by neighborhood. But again, it's a neighborhood which is shielded because it's got this huge slag mountain.
Yeah.
So there's no possibility of shooting at you directly, right? If you might get hit by a mortar or something, but that didn't seem to be the case. So first of all, the people violating the ceasefire are the Kiev forces. Another question is, if you look at Wikipedia, they say, "Oh, the Donetsk People's Republic, it's this unrecognized state." Well, it's recognized by South Ossetia, so it's been recognized by somebody, and therefore,
I recognize it. You recognize it, so to hell with them.
Well, again,
Wikipedia can take a hike. I don't like
But here's the big thing with Wikipedia: they say it was announced in the night of the 6th to the 7th of April of last year by a group of masked thugs and goons, and I will tell you, no, it was actually a very interesting process. There were a number of officials who were thinking that it was necessary to declare independence, and I talked to one of them. I talked to a man. I'm going to be talking about him a lot tonight. His name is Boris Litvinov. Litvinov. He is a relative, I believe, of the famous Maxim Litvinov, who was the Soviet foreign minister before Molotov, right, up until about 1938. So Litvinov, this Boris Litvinov was one of three people who drafted the Declaration of Independence of the new Donetsk People's Republic. Litvinov, Cherkashin, and Purgin. Cherkashin is I think a sociologist. Anyway, these are highly cultured individuals. These are guys in business suits. Every time I saw Litvinov, he had a white shirt and a tie, and his style is more or less that of a late Soviet government official. And the thing about Litvinov, you go to my website, you'll see a picture of him with me. But the thing about him is, he's the Thomas Jefferson of his country, because they had a committee. The committee was Litvinov, Cherkashin, and Purgin. So you think Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and others that were in that committee. But the guy who stayed up all night actually finishing the text was Litvinov. And as he told us, they carefully examined precedents of international law when drafting their Declaration of Independence, because they want it to stand up, right? They don't want it to have formal mistakes. So it fulfills certain formal criteria that the UN and others have set up. So that's one.
Right.
How about another one? They're accused of being anti-Semites. Well, gosh, I met the foreign minister. His name is Kaufman, Kofman, and you look on the internet, they'll tell you that he's actually an Israeli. And he said, no, I've lived all my life here in Ukraine, or the Donetsk Republic now, and the reports about Israel are simply anti-Semitism coming from the Kiev fascists. And of course, Litvinov, the fact that Maxim Litvinov, the guy in the 1930s, was Jewish, was an important feature, because getting rid of Litvinov and replacing him with Molotov was Stalin's way of signaling a readiness to bargain with Hitler in 1939, right? The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So the anti-Semitism turns out to be all on the side of these Kiev people. So, and then there's the puppet state, and this I think this is really the most important. This is not a puppet state. This is absolutely not a puppet state, and in many ways, it's very different from Russia, and it's actually better than Russia in quite a few ways. Although it benefits and survives thanks to what one guy, this guy, Professor Baryshnikov. Now, this is not Baryshnikov, the ballet dancer. This is Baryshnikov, the professor of political science and actually former rector of the head of the whole thing, the president of the university, at the Donetsk University. Baryshnikov pointed out that what you had going on in Donetsk and Lugansk and places like this was a mass strike. In other words, it was a mass strike responding step by step to the increasingly strident fascism coming out of Kiev and coming out of Lvov all the way over there in the west, and then building up towards what he said. There were a couple of weeks when everybody came out on the public square all day, every day, and discussed. And they tried through various means, which I can write up as soon as I get a chance to do this. They tried very hard to get their local assembly, right, the oblast or provincial assembly to declare independence, and they wouldn't do it. So it had to be done by the crowd, right, by the mass, which is that's how quite a few things have been done. For example, you think of the proclamation of the Weimar Republic, right? The German Republic was proclaimed at the Reichstag in November 1918 by a politician going to the window and proclaiming the Republic, and that was it. So this is actually more democratic because it was the people who were actually leading it, and then they demanded.
Of course, we never hear that over here. Thank you for bringing that news this way, you folks. Don't get the full story.
It was not even clear that this was the 6th or the 7th. In other words, the U.S. media portrays everything as ordered by Putin or ordered by some Russian general. Absolutely not.
Enough to make you sick.
And think of it as a middle class revolution, because that's what it is. It's a mass strike process piloted by the middle class in anti-fascist terms. And it has an economic content, which I think is really exciting. But let me just tell you a couple of more things about Litvinov. Litvinov, he is right now the first secretary of the Communist Party of Donetsk, of the Donetsk People's Republic. But that Communist Party is a faction within the two parties that share power. So he has essentially piloted the economics, as he says, with the help of two institutes of economic research and program, right? Two think tanks in Moscow. So that's what they did. So when you go in to see Boris Litvinov, he says, I want you to know a couple of things. He said, first of all, we reject the national fascist ideology of Kiev. We don't want any part of that. Right? That's just not us. So we're against it. And then he says, we're against oligarchy. We're against oligarchs. Now this would be hard to say in Moscow, but since they're under these rather extreme conditions, he can say it. We're against oligarchs. We're against neoliberalism. How about that? And right now, this guy is the president of the Supreme Soviet. They had something that was the People's Assembly, but then people they were impatient with that. They said that's not radical enough for us. We want the Supreme Soviet, right? Because the idea is that the Soviet times in many ways were better. So they had a referendum. 80% participated, and 89% of those who did said yes to sovereignty. So what do you got? 90%.
Yeah, sure.
72% of the whole country voted for it. So that's a resounding. That's a landslide.
Yep.
So there's no doubt about that. So the revolution is young. He's against national fascist ideology, anti-oligarch, anti-fascist, and anti-neoliberal. And they reject the enemy image of Russia, which is spread by Kiev. Now, here's the thing with this guy. He has got some economic things going, which I think are really exciting. First of all, how about the fact that he has nationalized all the banks? I mean, I
ran that story. I almost cheered.
They have nationalized all the banks. You go there, just about all the banks most of them are closed. They've been shut down.
Right.
There's one set of banks has been left open, and this is the one that had been owned by that awful Kolomoisky. Remember him?
Oh, what a
he
vile,
was ousted.
Horrible, hideous.
This was a rich guy who had, he was the one with the private army, right? He
the
was
big
the
oligarch,
violent.
the big fat slob with a beard.
Yeah, exactly. And he got into a fight with
Porky.
with Pornoshenko,
Yeah.
right? Porno.
Exactly.
But that was then mediated by the U.S. ambassador, Piat, and Piat said, Kolomoisky, go into exile. So away, gone. So the Kolomoisky banks are still open, but they're owned by the state. In other words, they've been nationalized. And what's going on with them is, under the Minsk II agreement, the people in Kiev were supposed to pay the pensions that they owed to all kinds of elderly people, retired people, injured people, disabled, all kinds, little children in these breakaway areas, but they won't do it. In other words, Kiev is welching. Kiev is refusing to pay. So the government of the DPR, right, Donetsk People's Republic, the DPR is paying. And I have, if you look on my website, you can see some pictures of people lining up in front of the Kolomoisky banks to get their money. And I guess to some extent they're getting paid out of Kolomoisky's money. How about that?
That's too funny.
I think the argument could end there, right? Once you've nationalized the entire banking system.
Yeah.
Let me also point out a couple of little symbolic things. They have closed the McDonald's. Actually, McDonald's closed itself. And although this has not happened yet, it will happen, that the McDonald's will be transformed into free cafeterias for the poor. In other words, free food, free lunch.
Oh, this is amazing.
Any rotten politician who told you there's no free lunch, wrong, there is. And it's available at the old McDonald's of Donetsk. I think there were 3 of them. Now, concerning the energy sector, as Litvinov has pointed out, you got to have a People's Republic, and it has to control the principal, utilities, public utilities, and natural resources. So the electricity generation and distribution is on its way to nationalization. It is already operating under government control and will be, in due course, formally nationalized. But the essence is already there. It's already being controlled by the government. And I think the same thing goes for the coal industry, which is the huge central element of their entire economy is coal, because you go everywhere, you see these mine shafts. Right?
Early on, I don't know if it was Kolomoisky or one of the other thugs, they tried to organize the coal miners to fight against the Donetsk People's Partisans, the early separatists, and it didn't last. So I assume that's by the board now.
I didn't hear anything about that. So
that was early on.
Kolomoisky is pretty much universally hated, and now he's out of the picture. But here's the idea. The coal industry, right? Litvinov says, we got to get coal going. You see all kinds of newspaper headlines. There will be coal. We will be mining coal. He says they need rolling stock. They need railroad cars, right? Gondola cars, things like this. And he says that they are going to be the world leader in machine tools for coal mining. And they have had delegations from China, from Vietnam, and from elsewhere saying, we want to buy your machine tools that you guys use for the mines. So that fulfills one of the main things, right? Every country in the world that wants to be independent has got to be the world leader in something, and this is actually a rather important something.
That's an extraordinary story. We're going to go through the break, Brett, so we'll keep going, Webster. This is
okay, well then
really fascinating. Well, man, one quick question too, if you would. Novorossiya, that's the term we see occasionally in the media to describe the Donbass, perhaps. What does it mean?
Well, Novorossiya, you have to remember these areas were under the Ottoman Empire. In other words, what you could call the Pontic steppe. Pontus is the old Latin word for the Black Sea. So Pontic is what's around the Black Sea,
right?
And there's a steppe, right, flat, countryside,
terrace, like flat,
like the steppes of Central Asia. But this is somewhat smaller, but it goes right down, pretty much right down to the water.
It's a beautiful piece of music, isn't it? No, there's the steppes
Yes,
of Central
sure.
Asia. Yeah.
Of course, both, right? But this is Prokofiev territory, I believe,
Okay.
here in this part of Ukraine. So they have the fact that this was under the Ottoman Empire, and it was the Khanate of the Crimea, I believe, and related areas, and these were subjected to the Turkish Sultan. And it was then Catherine the Great and her sidekick Potemkin, who got this for Russia in the 1760, 1770 thereabouts, and they took this over and they called this Novorossiya.
Ah, I see.
So Novorossiya is a bit broader than what we're dealing with right now. We
Gotcha.
have Lugansk People's Republic, Donetsk People's Republic, but then stretching sort of from Lugansk towards the west, right? The entire northern coast of the Black Sea would be Novorossiya.
Thank you for that.
If Russia got control of Novorossiya, this would render Ukraine a landlocked entity, right? It would have to find other ways to reach the water. But I don't think this is the proposal at all, right? And we can talk about that in a minute. But the principal idea you get in Moscow, as well as among the people in Donetsk, is they simply want to divide the country. That federalism is really not practical. As
now.
Professor Baryshnikov said, these people have been killing us wantonly. It's clear. Kiev started the killing. Kiev started the shooting. Kiev is the aggressor, right? So the opprobrium and the guilt go to Kiev, and the people sitting there in Donetsk say, look, don't talk to us about peaceful coexistence with these thugs, right? That won't be possible probably ever, right? Certainly we'll never see it.
No chance.
And that's also the idea in Moscow, I think. It's hard to get anybody to say it directly, but that seems to be the most realistic thing.
We talk about Kiev. Do we talk about the handlers, the interlopers who have been messing in there?
Let me just finish the program, though, because I think the thing that I really have to offer tonight is the stuff about what's going on there.
I want to hear it.
In terms of a social revolution, right? This is the revolution. I was thinking, you could take... Ever see this guy, what's his name? Russell Brand?
Yeah, God.
Okay, with the beard and everything, right? He's whatever he is.
Yeah.
So put Russell Brand and then put Litvinov and ask which one of these is the face of the revolution, right?
Yeah.
The guy who's nationalized the banks, nationalized the electricity industry, has seized control of the coal, or is it this other guy who gesticulates and prevaricates and
rants and raves
obfuscates.
and yeah.
Yeah, he just rants and raves. The revolution turns out to be this guy in a white shirt and a tie who's the first secretary of the party. All right. Now, how about a state sector? This is also a good idea, right? Under neoliberalism, under IMF shock therapy, what was done to Russia in the early 90s, you can't have a state sector, right? You got to sell everything off. Same thing with East Germany, right? Sell it all off, right? Sell it, at 5 cents on the dollar to a bunch of predatory oligarchs. So what they got going in the state sector is a couple of things. One is they have the first government-controlled supermarket. So a state store, and it's beautiful. It's clean. It's new. It's bright. They're fully stocked with everything. Again, go to tarpley.net. You can see a picture of it, and it says, in somewhat smaller writing than I would like, but it says first state-owned supermarket, first state supermarket of the Republic, and there it is, and it's a great thing. So they're going to essentially remove a certain number of middlemen who have been marking up prices. By the way, just after I left there, the economics minister, who I did not get a chance to meet, the economics minister put out a regulation saying that from now on, retail markup is price controlled. It's frozen for the moment. So it's this, you've heard of a wage and price freeze. Okay,
sure.
Now you got a markup freeze, and it's essentially you can't go over 30%. Right? If you buy goods from a wholesaler and you sell them retail, you can mark that up 30%, but not more. And I think you cannot go up from where you were before. So there's that one. Now,
if I might say, ladies and gentlemen, go to tarpley.net, look at the photos of what he is talking about. They're quite extraordinary. And I must say that the picture of you and Litvinov is very nice. And he looks like a kindly man. He looks like a kindly man.
He is. And notice he's holding my book, Obama, the Postmodern Coup.
Yeah.
Which is actually they're very interested in it because it essentially tells the entire story of what has happened, right? And it's got this wonderful cartoon on the back. Hillary is saying, let's attack Iran, and Obama says, what, you're crazy? And then the specter of Brzezinski looms over him, pulls him by the ear, and then Obama says, we have to attack Russia. And, of course, that book has got all the stuff in it about the color revolutions, Gene Sharp, the Albert Einstein.
Critical data. Critical.
It's all in there. So they're a lot of them are very intrigued by that book. So we got a state sector with supermarkets. And now, how about agriculture? There's still a lot, right? There's still a lot of farming villages and things like this. How about collective farms? In other words, agricultural co-ops. The cholchoz, right? The collective farm, right? Owned by the people who make it up. That is an idea that is now gaining in popularity, and they're offering, certain encouragements to do it. But that you can, you can have some capital to buy, to mechanize, to get fertilizer or other inputs and so forth by being a collective farm. Now, I think this is really interesting. So you got a state sector with state-owned supermarkets and agricultural collectives. Now, the overarching thing is they say they don't want neoliberalism, and you're hearing all that, right? It's a very energetic, robust state intervention. Now, how about pessimism? How about historical and cultural pessimism as expressed in Malthusianism, right? This is, of course, the curse of American leftists, right? That they believe that, that essentially they believe the human condition is tragic because science, technology, industry can't get you out of it, and there's going to be global warming, and it's going to be over, right? So they're completely pessimistic. So a clarion call comes from Donetsk, and they say, look, we need to increase our population. And he goes through these figures. He says, at the end of the Soviet era, we had 5.44 million people here. By the way, if you remember the old maps, right, if you go back quite a ways, right, into the 50s and 60s, this town Donetsk, this is what you saw on the map as Stalino. This is Stalino, not Stalingrad, but Stalino, or Stalina, as they would say. So that had to change already, in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly when. By the way, the town was founded by a British mining engineer by the name of Hughes. So, and it's of course the Donetsk Donbass, one of the greatest, by some measures, it was the greatest industrialized area on the surface of this planet. So all of that is going on. So what's their answer to pessimism? That they need to increase the population. It was 5 million or some odd. 5.4 million at the end of the Soviet Union. 5.4 million. But then before the trouble, say in 2012, 2013, it was already down by more than 1 million to 4.3 million. And since then, they've had a lot of refugees leaving. So this guy says, to provide the basis for expanded reproduction of this society, and this is all, absolutely precise economic terminology, we have to increase the population. We have to promote family formation, and we have to promote births. And therefore, we're hoping that families can think about 3 children per family as a reasonable cultural norm, and they will offer the economic basis in terms of, various kinds of encouragement, in terms of medical care, family allowances, and other things. So I think that's absolutely extraordinary.
I'm stunned.
It cuts against the whole Malthusian climate of the, say, post-1968, post-Club of Rome period, right? And it shows that these people are intellectually stronger than the Chinese. Maybe they've learned from the Chinese, right? That one child per family was absolute insanity, and China will pay a terrible price for that. For
so how many
years to come.
How many from the Donbass now are still in exile across the Russian border?
They really don't know, right? They figure, certainly a million and a half. It gets to be quite a lot of their population.
Yeah.
So what I would say about this is from my point of view, he's the first secretary of the Communist Party, but you could just as easily say this is dirigism of Alexander Hamilton, Henry Clay, and the American system. And as he says, we do not want to stifle individual initiative. It's just that under these circumstances, the state needs to push. It needs to encourage, promote, foster, right, regulate economic activity. So that's dirigism. So I think this is absolutely fascinating. He says the state will exercise strict control over natural resources. We have to upvalue our mental capital. Now, he also says, look at these coal mines we have. Look at these other resources, right? They have the Black Earth region, which again is, if not the greatest, certainly one of the greatest agricultural regions in the world. He says, we had Hunter Biden come here, and he wanted to buy it.
Oh,
and the answer was no. Hunter Biden
he deserved more than that.
For an answer.
He should have had his ass kicked. Get out of here. Hold on a second. We've got to take a break. We'll come back in a couple minutes. Okay, let's get right back to Webster and an incredible overview and inside look at the Donetsk People's Republic, the DPR, situated in the Donbass, along with the LPR, the Lugansk People's Republic. This is a major thing. What I'm hearing is really unique, unprecedented, and I am curious about the military aspects of it with this Azov battalion and the obvious equipping of the Kiev killing army by the West and others who appear to be positioning and formatting for a major conflict this summer, which is not going to be good. And if that happens, Webster, what is Russia's response? What are they going to do?
This is harder to judge because I think the pattern you see is that the Donetsk people are very good defensively. When the Kiev forces get stretched out, when they stick their necks out and they start to form these salients, then those turn into pockets. Right?
They got pinched. Yep.
Pocket reminds us of this. So
they lost 400 tanks there.
It's very hard to say. And really, of the people we met, none of them was really directly engaged with the military stuff. We met the information minister, the foreign minister, once again, Kaufman. We met the president of the Supreme Soviet, Boris Liftonov. We met one security guy. I'll tell you about him in just a minute. Very, very interesting guy from the Berkut, a veteran of the Berkut, which was the sort of the local equivalent of the Russian OMON or Spetsnaz. Right? Don't forget them. But look, one or two other things on the economic front. How about monetary reform? How about the central bank, and so to speak, right? Are you
throwing
going
it
to have
off?
a currency that you control, or are you going to have a currency that some committee of bankers meeting in oak-paneled rooms behind closed doors and secrecy that they decide, like we do? That's what we have.
Yeah.
So, indeed, they are creating they hesitate to call it a new monetary unit. Again, and I don't even think it has a name yet. Go to Tarpley.net and you'll see both sides of this new, as he called it, a currency symbol. Now, the symbol is this Russian word znak. The znak is like a marker, a sign. But I actually thought that they could call it a monetary token or currency token. In other words, a znak, I think, could be that. So it would be a token of a currency to come. And you'll see it's got St. George and the Dragon, which is a very common motif. And they will soon have their own nationally controlled currency, controlled by the government and not by some bunch of oligarchs sitting in a central bank, which is, again, what we have. So I think there's a lot to be celebrated here. Let me also just to fill out the picture on who came trying to steal their resources. Hunter Biden came.
I can't believe that. When was this? Recently?
Well, that's the big conflict of interest, right?
That's
that Hunter Biden is on the board.
What the hell
of
is
the Ukrainian gas and energy company?
Folks, now figure this out. Hunter Biden, one of Joe Biden's offspring, is on the board in Ukraine. Do you understand the money connections? Okay.
It's a conflict of interest.
God,
we think it would be illegal. Right? This is more important than Hillary's foundation.
Yeah.
And then the other interest that wanted to come in, Royal Dutch Shell wanted to buy a whole lot of coal mines, and the answer from Litvinov again was "Niet, no." So this is highly interesting. And then just concerning the war and peace and message to America, which I am happy to deliver, Litvinov says, we want peace. We never attacked anybody. We've been on the defensive the whole time, and they came to kill us. No settlement is possible as long as you have foreign soldiers on Ukrainian territory, and that's what you have right now, right? Operation, if you got Tarpley.net in front of you, it's Operation Endless.
Hold on, I get it. Yeah, I just looked at it. It's correct. Let me get it here.
My proposal is forget about this helm business, whatever this is.
Operation Fearless, from the pentagram, folks. Operation Fearless Guardian, a.k.a.
There we go. Operation Fearless Guardian is
also known as U.S. training of Ukrainian fascists.
Right,
so,
that's the name of that. So Operation Fearless Guardian. That's the one to worry about. That's the one that can give you World War III. What's this other one called? Helm Visor, whatever.
The Jade Helm.
Jade Helm.
That's home.
Forget that. That's a big nothing compared to this one.
1,200 special forces over 15 states. What are they going to do?
I don't know. But in this case, the U.S. is teaching torture techniques. The U.S. has made it possible for Ukraine to deploy phosphorus weapons and cluster bombs.
Cluster bombs, yep.
Okay, and there's more. I have to just interject now. I asked a top security man there, the Berkut veteran, what do you know about depleted uranium? And he said, we really don't know much about depleted uranium. So this is also a very, very important question, right? Because without a doubt, the depleted uranium has been used on them. So Litvinov says, as long as you have these foreign soldiers on our territory, or Ukraine territory, and it actually they may be on Donetsk territory, because the government in Donetsk does not hold the entire province, right? Parts of it, the northwest parts of the Donetsk province have been taken over, right? They're held by the Ukrainian fascists, right? So they can, as long as you have foreign soldiers quite possibly on our territory, and as long as you're threatening to deliver weapons, these modern weapons, right? I think Obama, to his credit, has stalled on this for quite a while. Time to take that off the table. But again, Litvinov says, as long as you got foreign soldiers and foreign weapons in the picture, there is no peace. And there will be no peace until Obama and his administration give the order to Kiev to stop their military operations.
Right.
And I should have mentioned before that the direction of the Donetsk economy is to merge with the Eurasian Economic Union promoted by Putin, and not with the European Union.
Any further union with Crimea, DPR, LPR, and Crimea?
Well, here's what they had: the Novorossiya, which you asked about before. They called a joint session of the parliament, right? The assembly of both the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republic, and they sat together under the name Novorossiya Parliament. But according to a number of people, it has not shifted the center of gravity away from the two provincial, now national, parliaments, right? So that the Novorossiya needs, it's a weaker, entry, right? The power is more diffuse there.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't taken off. It's not the center of where the main decisions are made. Now that could change over time, right? Depending on how they do it.
We have only 4 minutes left, Webster. I remain very concerned about the militarism of Kiev and its handlers.
Sure. Here's what I can say about that, right? When you're there, you hear small arms fire in the night.
Okay.
And some of it seems quite close, right? Because sounds travel farther at night. You hear, you hear boom, 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 and it's some artillery or some fairly large rockets. And then you hear this, it sounds like ping pong balls almost, right? Pa, 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 pa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you hear. Now, as I was returning, and this was, around the 22nd of April, coming back, in other words, going from the Ukrainian border to Rostov-on-Don.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nearest airport. In other words, if you're going to go to Donetsk, you go to Rostov-on-Don first. That's the Sea of Azov, right? Where the Don meets the Sea of Azov. So as I was coming back, we counted 6 Russian army convoys going towards the border. And that was, a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
So the idea is that there is a buildup. Whatever the Ukrainians are doing, there's also a Russian buildup.
Glad to hear it.
This is a very sensitive area, and I could talk a whole lot more about that. But I think you get the idea. The main thing that's going on is this tremendous policy revolution, right? So I urge people. I'll be churning out summaries of some of these interviews and other things, for the next couple of weeks. So
please make
check
sure
it up
I
on
get
Tarpley.net.
them. Yeah.
Now let me just for the last 2 minutes. Tomorrow's the British election. Tomorrow is when Britain votes for the House of Commons, and I have a candidate over there that I'm supporting, and his name is Stuart Hooper. Stuart J. Hooper, Hooper. If you are in the county of Essex, and if you are in the district of South Basildon and East Thurrock, in the county of Essex, please consider supporting Stuart Hooper, because he's the only anti-austerity candidate of them all. You've got right-wingers who get you with fiscal austerity, wage austerity, taxes, destroy services, all that, service austerity. And then you got these insidious leftists with their Malthusian stories, their global warming mythology.
Really
and they want to hit you with energy austerity.
Mm-hmm.
Energy austerity. So the only candidate of this entire thing who says no to the right-wing wage austerity, fiscal austerity, and no to the left-wing energy austerity is Stuart Hooper. And this involves nationalizing the Bank of England, a 1% turnover tax on the City of London, build 3 million houses, 5 million jobs, restore the industry of Scotland, Wales, and Northern England. So this is a tremendous thing. Take a look at it, Stuart Hooper for MP.
Very good. What a wonderful report, and I think that was just a trip of a lifetime to go over there at this point in the evolution of East Ukraine. When you look at a map of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, look and see where Kiev is. It's pretty much in the center of the country, right on a big river, and not very far away, the Dnieper, and not very far away to the east is the center of all of this action. And then on the border at the east is Lugansk and Donetsk and Kramatorsk and Kharkov, which is the big prize. That whole section of the country could eventually split off and be gone. We will see. We will see.
Quite possibly.
Webster, thank you.
And again, there's no U.S. interest involved. This does not threaten the United States in any way, shape, or form. Not in any way.
Make sure I get what you write and produce, please, and thanks so much. That was absolutely fascinating.
Get well soon, Jeff.
Thank you. Take care, friend.
Bye-bye.
Good night.